Now we are ready to submit our application to the millions of users around the world. But before we can do this, we need to prepare our application for submission. And by preparing it, we need to make sure our project is ready to be uploaded to the App Store. And we also need to kind of create the sales page for our application to basically be displayed again within the App Store. Now, what we're going to first take a look at is we're going to return back to where we first set up our profile within iTunes Connect, and we created our in-app purchase. We're going to revisit that page, and we're going to now populate it with all the information that we need to sell within the App Store. Now, when you normally do go on the App Store and you see all the applications, everything from the application icon to all the screenshots and the description that you see is all pre-populated within iTunes Connect by the developer. And this is what's known as our sales page. So we're going to return now back into iTunes Connect, where we again once created up our in-app purchase within our Tappy Hands application. Now this is done within the features section. We're now going to jump into the App Store section of our application, and the first tab that we have is our app information. Now from within here, this first section here, we've got a few different configurations that we can do. The first thing you see at the top here is our localizable information, which is our name. Now this is going to be the actual name of our application, so make sure that you put something catchy in there, something that also accurately represents your app that you've created. And again, this is what's going to be displayed as the title. Down below, we've got our Tappy Hands, where we can see we've got our bundle ID that we've linked up to our project, so it knows that when we submit our application, that project links to this profile, which will again get displayed within the App Store, and then our user can simply download it. On the right hand side here, we've got some different primary languages, and then we've got our category. Now the category is basically what your game or your application falls within on the App Store. So within the category here, we have to give it a primary. So the secondary is optional. So for us, the primary it is a game. So I'm going to select game here. Now some of the categories do have subcategories. For example, the games category, it's quite a wide spectrum of where a game can fall basically within the games category. So again, it's completely optional to do subcategories. So I could probably say this is a tap-based game. So you could go on to say it's quite of a, a sports or a simulation or a strategy game, anything like that. But I'm just going to completely leave it at games. The more categories that you do have, obviously the wider and the more range you're going to have with your actual application. But I'm going to keep it on as games. Now if we scroll down now, we got additional information just below at the bottom where we can view the app on the App Store, but currently we haven't submitted it, so we won't be able to view it on the App Store just yet. But once we get onto this section now, we can then go on to press save. Now while waiting for it to save there, it's just saved there. All we've now updated is the name of the application and the category it now falls under. The next section, we're going to move on to our pricing and availability. Now this sets how much the application is for a potential user or customer to download it. Now as we've added in-app purchases and advertising banners within an application, generally we're just going to basically go for making the application completely free. So even though it has price, and we're going to give it a price, free is one of the actual tiers. So you can see at the top here. So just like how we set a price for our in-app purchase, it kind of works the exact same way for when you're creating a price for the overall application. We got more and more tiers, and this is currently being displayed in my own local currency in Great British Pounds. But you can go onto the right hand side for all prices and currencies to either see what it looks like in other currencies, but by default it will be displayed in your own localized currency. So I'm going to leave this application to be completely free now. And you can see the start date of the current date right now to the end date, which there is no end date because I haven't told the application that it needs to change price at a certain date. So now we've got that set up. We've now got the availability down below, which it says it's available in all territories. If we go on to edit that, you can see by default it's selected in every app store possible. Your application is then ready to sell. If there's any certain areas that you don't want it to sell within, or if you don't want it to be basically sold within your own app store or nowhere else, you can then go on to detoggle or toggle the territories that you simply want. Now if we scroll down now, we've got the volume purchase program. Now this is only really kind of beneficial for if you've got like an educational application where you want to give your application, like set it in vast amounts with discounts and stuff like that. But by default, it's always selected on this, so just completely leave it like that. And then we're pretty much done for the pricing and availability. We're told the application that it's free and it's available in every single territory. So we then go on to press save. So we've sorted out the name, we've sorted out the kind of category, the price, and where the application is now available. What's left to do now then is jump into our prepare for submission here. You can see underneath our iOS app. And this is where we're going to populate the actual iTunes profile of our application. So you can see the first thing that we're greeted with is our version here, version information. So this is the information of the current version, which this is version 1 of the application. As you can see at the very top here, iOS app 1.0. So the first thing you're going to do then is add in all the screenshots that we're going to be needing for our application. So you would have seen this anyway when you go to download any app. It's got all the bunch of screenshots that you would normally check out. This is where you upload those screenshots. Now the cool thing about it is we don't have to create a screenshot for every device screen size or type. We used to have to do that in the past, but now we have the capability to just get in the highest version of the iPhone and iPad screenshots, and then it would use that and display it on every version for the smaller iPhone screens and the smaller iPad screens, which is pretty cool for us. So all we need to do now is gather a bunch of screenshots. So we're going to jump back into Xcode. And we're going to make sure our application is going to be built and run on the highest iPhone screen, which is the iPhone 7 Plus. We're going to build and run, and we're just going to wait for that to now load up. Okay then, so now once it's loaded up, all I'm simply going to do is press the command button and the letter S, which then goes on to save a screenshot for us directly to the desktop of our computer. So this has allowed me now to take a screenshot of our home view. I'm now going to move on to the next part then, so go throughout your whole application and find various points within the application and where you feel like a screenshot will be most valuable. So I'll take a screenshot of the actual game being played, and then once the game is finished and it takes us to our end screen, I press Command and S once more for the third time to take a screenshot again of the final screen. So I've now got 3 screenshots all saved up on my desktop, and we'll check those out in just a moment. Now in the App Store, if I jump back into it now, it says here we can drag an app preview of up to 5 screenshots in total. So we can have a maximum of 5, so we've got 3, so pretty much we're all sorted there. So now I'm going to bring up all the files on my desktop, as you can now see, and you can see that we got our 3 screenshots now all saved on our desktop. And all we're going to do is simply drag and drop those in, again making sure that we was also selected on the iPhone tab, which we were, and we just wait for these to now upload. So we can just take a second or two depending on how quick your internet connection is. Now if they don't display in the correct order, you can drag and drop and move them around, but they're pretty much perfect for us. So there you go. We got the largest iPhone screens all now being displayed in the 5.5 inch display section. Now the great thing that Apple has implemented is we can basically use these screenshots to be displayed across the board on all different iPhone versions in terms of its screen size. Previously in the past, we'll have to create individual screenshots again for the different screen sizes. So if I drop down this little section here for other sizes, you can now see it kind of changes and decreases the size of what we've just added in for the 4.7, the 4 inch and the 3.5. Now we can go on to create individual screenshots for them if you want to completely do that. But again, it just saves us that little bit of time. We just create the screenshots for the highest resolution screen that we need to display, and then it will create its own individual sizes for the lower ones. Again, kind of similar to how it worked when we created our application icons. So if you wanted to create, again, your own individual versions for this, you can see on all of them now, it says at the bottom, using 5.5 inch. We're saying simply to go click on them, and it says, do you want to save the changes? We can quickly save the changes because we've already added those in. And then what that allows us to then do is we just wait for it to now finish. So we just save the changes. Let's go back into it and click onto it. We can then individually go into each section here. I'll drop down all the menus for our iPhones. So we've got the 3.5 inch, the 4 inch, the 4.7, and then finally the 5.5. Now, on the right hand side, we have by default already toggled to use the 5.5 inch display images. So if our user has, again, for example, the smallest iPhone screen, when they go into the App Store and then they go to see the screenshots that they're going to be seeing is from the application on the largest screen. Now this is great because it can save us a lot of time, but also it's also great that we can actually adjust the individual ones for the screen sizes, because sometimes the application is not always going to look the same on the smaller screen as it will on the big screen. So if you didn't want to use it, you can then simply toggle off and then go to add in your own screenshots for the 3.5. And all this will simply require is going into the simulator, building and running on a different simulator, and then saving all the images. But what I'm going to do is use the 5.5 inch ones. I'm perfectly happy with that. Now the same thing goes on now for the iPad. So we can simply create the screenshots for the largest iPad screen, and then again it will then scale it down for the smaller iPad screen, which is pretty cool. So we're now going to head back to our application overview where we can add in all these screenshots. So back again to preparing for submission. We got the iPhone ones in there. We're now going to jump to the iPad section and go to add those in. So that's going to require us now to go to the biggest iPad Pro 12.9 inch. We'll stop it from running at the moment. Go to build and run once more, and then gather the 3 screenshots on the iPad ready to upload again in that section. And as you see, it's a pretty big simulator. Now I could descale it down so we can clearly see it on the screen, but for some reason when you do scale down the actual simulator and you save a screenshot, it also scales down the screenshot. So we want to keep this simulator completely by its default size. So it's a little bit hard to see on the screen right now. But overall, we just want to take a screenshot of the home screen, go then to start the game. Again, it's a little bit hard to see. Do a few little taps here, take our secondary screenshot, and now all we need to do is wait for the game to end and return back to the end game screen. We'll then take our third screenshot, there we go, save that, and then jump back in to iTunes Connect. So we're in here now, then we're ready to actually submit our brand new screenshot. So we highlight all 3 of them. I'm going to simply drag and drop those in. So now just wait for those to upload, and once they upload, if they need to be kind of reordered, then we'll reorder them now, which no, they're perfectly in the right order, which is pretty cool for us. And again, for other sizes, if I drop this down now, we've got the 9.7 inch, the smaller iPad screen. We're now using the 12.9 inch one, so we pretty much got all those screenshots added in. So I'm going to quickly go up to press save now. So all the screenshots for both iPhone and iPad are now all added in. Again, the smaller screens are using the larger ones, and we pretty much got it all working. So again, back to the iPhone. Looking great. Okay then, so now we add in the screenshots, we can now move down then to the next section of preparing our application. And that is then going on to add the description of our app. So what would we actually want to add in here? Now we've already give a description of the application just by the screenshots alone, but now we can do a written description again of our application. So we can add in something pretty cool, like simply find out who has the fastest fingers with this fun, addictive game. So pretty much give a description there. I'm not too sure if it has a minimum text amount limit. We'll find out in just a second anyway. But then we can go on to finding out the keywords. So this is a very important part of creating your application. The keywords is what users use to find the application. So you need to give it something relevant. Also, don't just do generic stuff like game, because everybody's going to search game and your application won't appear within that keyword. So you need to give it something one unique, but also represents the game. So I could say fast, and every keyword you separate with a comma. Fast, finger, reaction, based, game. Now pretty much the actual game keyword won't be as good as maybe the fast finger or reaction, but we'll add it in there anyway just in case someone searches reaction based game. We've got all the keywords that we need within there. Then we move on to our support URL. Now the support URL is if your user has a problem with your application or needs to get in contact with you directly because, again, they need help either in the app, they found a bug or something like that, we need to give them a support URL. Now this gets displayed in a little section on the App Store which the user can then go on to basically find. And all it is, again, it's not an email address, it's nothing like that, it's just a link that they can be directed to get support for the application. So if you have a website or if you have a Twitter or a Facebook account that you use as your developer, then go on to add that in. So for my case, I can add in my website at geekylemon.com there. Marketing URL, we don't really need to add one in. Again, that's only for the marketing material when we submit it, but we do not need that one at all. So we'll save this section now and just double check that the description is enough words within there. Which I know it's kind of like a little bit like the opposite to Twitter, where Twitter has a maximum of 140 keywords. The description also has a minimum. So once you got the description in, the keywords, the support URL, we can now scroll down to the next section. Now, as it stands, our application has no iMessage app and no Apple Watch app, so we don't need to worry about these two sections for now. Now, when it comes to this build section here, in the next lecture, when we go to submit our application to the App Store, once we've submitted it, this is where we add the build in. Now, we don't have it just yet, so we won't add it at the moment. So scrolling down to the next section then, which is our general app information. You can see the first thing here is our app icon. So this is where we add in the largest version of the application icon we created previously in the course. So we go to choose file. And then once it appears now, this is quite a little bit big there, select our large icon version and choose. And we just wait for that to now upload. And then once it's uploaded, we'll keep our version at 1.0 because it's the first version of the application that we're going to be submitting. Then we have this little section here, which is often overlooked. But again, if you do miss anything within this section, you will get an error telling you that you need to add something in. This is the rating of the application. Now, if we go to edit it, this is where we now select, and you have to be 100% honest when it comes to this, or your application can get rejected, is we need to now edit the rating to kind of basically find out what kind of age restriction or age rating it's going to be given for either kids or young adults or even elderly people to find out, again, about your application before they choose to download it. So it's kind of basically the same ratings movies get in cinemas, application is also going to get one. So as it stands, there's no cartoon violence, there's no realistic violence, there's no again violence at all, there's no profanity or crude humor, no mature themes, no horror themes, no medical treatment, no alcohol, tobacco or drug use, anything like that, simulated gambling, no nudity or anything like that, or again of that nature. Has unrestricted web access? No, it does not. Gambling and contests? No, it does not. So after all that, this game, you can also say it's also made for kids in a sense, and you could go on to select any of those ages. But again, it's not a game, you know, fully aimed at kids, so I won't select that anyway. But either which one you select, you're going to get an age rating. You see that this application is now suited for the ages of 4 and upwards. So that's pretty much good. But if I did select any of these, like a mild one here, you can see how the age rating now changes. And if I add a few more that go higher, so we get a higher restriction. So we basically keep it as low as possible because that is what our application represents. And again, you have to be 100% honest because your application could get rejected. And press done. And there we go. We've added that in. So now in this right hand section here, we have the copyright. So the copyright is who is basically, you know, the owner of the application. So it could either be your own developer name, it could be your own company name, or the people you work for, or who's hired you to make the application, anything like that. But who is basically the legal owner of the application? Now place in my developer name now. So Geeky Lemon Development, and then we got down below to add in the contact details for you as a developer. So all we need to do then is add in our name. and then fill out all the other details down below to then simply, your address and then your phone number and email. Again, this is solely for the App Store if they need to contact you if there's any problems with either the submission of the application or just the application in general. So finish and file all that out. And there we go. So we can now move on to the next section, which is our in-app purchase section just here. And this is where we then go on to add in all the in-app purchases that we're going to be submitting with this version of the application. So if you go to our in-app purchase and press this little plus symbol here, it will then bring up all the in-app purchases that we have, which we've only got one at the moment, which is our remove ads. So we select that and press done. That then adds it in. Game Center, we don't have that included, so keep it toggled off. And all the way at the very bottom here, our app review information. So if your application basically requires the ability for maybe an account to be signed into play with it or use it or anything like that, you can then go on to give the kind of person reviewing the application kind of like a dummy account. So they can sign into your application to complete the review, test it out and see what it's all about. So here you can give them a username and password so they can, log in with this dummy account to review the app. And again, also on the right hand side, you have to fill in your, name, email address, last name and phone number for also if there's any problems with this side of it as well, if they can't log in to review the application. So go to add in your contact information once more, and then once we've done that, we're going to scroll down to the bottom where we got our version release. So we can either choose to, by default, it's selected to automatically release this version of the application, or we could say automatically release the version no earlier than, again, or manually release the version. So why would we want to choose this? Well, let's say you submit your application today, but you don't want to release the application until, let's say, 2 weeks away. Within that period of time, you can make sure it goes through the review, it gets approved, it's all good to go, and then you can set yourself an actual launch day. And by doing that, we can then choose to manually release it. Else, if you're not too bothered about when the application comes out, maybe you just kind of submit an update, you can then go to automatically release this version. Or again, you can choose to automatically release the version after the app review at a no later date than such and such. So we have quite a bit of control in when we can release our application. So leave that on automatic and then simply go up to save, again, once you've added in your contact information. So I'll do that just now. And then once we've saved it, we then get this blue button that now appears, submit for review. Now we can't quite submit it for review just yet, and that is down to the fact that we haven't submitted our project to iTunes Connect and linked it to the profile we've just created here within the build section, ready for submission. So now that we've prepared the version on the App Store, we now need to submit our application to add it to this before we send it off for review. And we'll be taking a look at that in the next lecture.